there are opportunities in any part of the world. And it's just like approaching it where you're seeing all of those opportunities and being just knowing enough or telling enough people what your passion project is or what your dreams are. And you never know who you're talking to sometimes.
In the room, 52 Jokers Wild. Now, I've got mine pinned to myself, so I'm actually not looking at you, Per. I'm looking at myself.
Oh, he does that all the time. He does that all the time. We're just going to go.
The only audience that matters is me.
Sure, you're not a comedy duo.
A what?
Sure, you're not a comedy duo.
No, there's what our problem is. Nobody has been taking us serious for freaking 3 years now. So it turns out we've been on the wrong channel. We should have been on the comedy channel.
Yeah, that's it. Now, so I think we're recording in all. Yeah, we're just about. I'm gonna have to use the Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall in the backgrounds for us. That'd be really cool. I think that'd be good.
Anything's really cool.
There we go. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and it's got. There you go. Going to start again.
No, leave it in.
We got that out, so hello and welcome to another episode of In the Room with George and Garvin. And this week our guest is Myia Elliott, who is a creative producer with Irish effing attitude.
Now, I'm going to stop there now, Amiji. Now, this is live, will be live.
Nope.
George has decided after 3 years to change the name of the program without actually telling me. So it's actually not with Garvin and George. It's 52 Jokers Wild. It's in the room with 52 Jokers Wild. It just happens to be Garvin George and Garvin.
It's the only way. It's the only way that someone's going to pay any attention to George if I mention it, because otherwise it becomes just the Garvin show.
The Garvin show, and it's the way it should be. And him, and
that other guy. And I'm just going to have to do this kind of thing. I'm going to have to be a Ronnie. But Myia, we had on the show last week.
You're saying it's Myia, not Mia. It's Myia. Myia, and it's Elliot. No, I'm stuck on the Elliot. Elliot the dragon. That's where. So is Myia a bit of a dragon of a producer, director, or is she your friendly manager type? I don't know.
Depends on the day. It depends on the day. It depends on what's necessary. Especially as a female, it depends.
No, you actually, George.
Generally, I'm like a giggle and it's grand.
Yeah, no, George mentioned the name. I already shut him down. It was something effing. Was it effing attitude?
It's Irish
effing. Now, what the f*** are you talking about there? What is this Irish?
Actually, I need training. I need some training in this.
Training wheels for George.
I've just become an Irish citizen after 37 years living in Ireland. I am now an Irish citizen. So what do I need to get to have the Irish effing attitude?
One of the reasons I chose that was a disagreement between myself and a manager way back in the day. It was kind of like part of my learning curve of Hollywood. But also, one of the things I really love about Ireland is kind of like the can do. Like people don't really tell you can't do something. It's kind of like, they're your dreams, go after them. Why not? Why can't you?
No, hold on a second now. You're not. George, I'm going to hold her on this one. No, constantly. There's a caveat there. You know it, and I know it. If you're Irish, they say that, but they don't mean that, because we're a bloody nation of begrudgers at the best of times. So we don't want you. We say it. But we don't want you to win the lotto. We want to win the lotto. But we don't want you to do well if we don't do well.
It. That's the Irish effing attitude.
Yeah, the Irish effing attitude is...
Nobody else can get it but me. I'm going to go for it.
Well, I think it's more that way. There's a caveat in there. Well, what do you reckon? Do you think we are...
I think if somebody's begrudging someone else, it's their problem. It's not yours.
It's your problem if I'm begrudging you, because you'll fucking know about it. No, I'm only messing.
We can mute him. Yeah. That's it, Garvin. You can say what you like. We can just put you on pause there and just go play some music.
Nothing. I have been on pause for about 15 to 30 years now already. So I just took the pause off about 2 years ago. We're making up for lost time. We're exploding with passion and attitude. Actually, with attitude. But we have to translate that attitude into something meaningful in terms of work or creative output. No point in having an attitude if you're doing nothing with it.
Like, some of the best encouragement I've ever gotten in my career has been from amazing Irish producers.
Thanks a lot. George, she loves you. That's the best compliment we've got to date.
But like, yeah, there can be begrudgery, but it's usually that only exists from people that are kind of living in the lack anyway. And anyone can only begrudge you because they're not getting up off their own ass and doing something about it.
We've identified the problem.
Maybe it's their problem, not yours.
All this time, that's the problem. We've identified it.
Whatever.
No, I think it's brilliant because I know that it is a case of just keep going and going and going and actually living in the moment is one of the things that we've been doing is just saying that, you know, keep working at it, learn something new, see how that will help you, and just keep going and don't let anybody stop you.
You know what?
Go on.
I just realized where I got it all wrong. Someone told me to have PMA, but what I heard was PMT. And I've had it wrong for the last while now. It was the attitude and not the other. So I
in that commercial for quite a while. What was it with Lenny Henry or someone like that for like positive? Yeah, the sports or something. Yeah, I remember that. That's where I learned it actually from telly.
Well, actually, Garvin still spent the last about 37 years or so just watching one particular advert for Marathon, and only because he's in it with this Mohican hair.
It wasn't for the chocolate. It was for the hair. It was the only evidence I have to date that I can show my children that I had about 1.5 foot of hair. I didn't come out. I did come out looking like this, but I'm going to go to my grave looking like this. But somewhere in the middle, there was some attitude in hair. Actually, I think I mentioned this before in a previous episode. My ego and my was actually my hair, and I lost me mojo when I lost my hair. So I need to get myself a decent wig.
Mojo. You've still got a lot of attitude, so it's okay.
No, this is a diluted, toned down version. You can just imagine what was going on when you had hair. Actually, I think what was if you go back,
I've still got it.
Social media. If you went back to like 1985 and social media was you had to have it exhibiting in your dress sense and your makeup and your hair and your bit of disco dancing in the nightclub and the way you strutted around the bar to try and get the birds or to break into that gaggle of dancing around like handbags. But you had to have attitude and you had to have confidence. Otherwise, you join the end of the queue.
The only problem is he was inside the chicken run, and I told him before that was the wrong hen thing to be in.
No, actually, we better ask Myia a question. For some, I don't know why, but we must ask you something about something. You do something in Hollywood.
I think you're obviously in Hollywood or in that sort of area now, and you're obviously getting work. What made you change from being in Ireland and go to Hollywood, or was it just chance?
No, I always dreamed of, like, even whenever I was a kid, of being in America, in Hollywood. And I went to college in New York in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts when I was doing acting. Still do some acting, but I ended up on the other side of the camera producing stuff an awful lot more. But like, I think in many respects, like for an Irish actor at the time, you kind of there wasn't enough work in Ireland. Productions were only starting to come into Ireland. Like if you remember, John Huston was actually the person responsible for helping the Irish Film Board be set up in the first place. So thanks, John Huston. And like you kind of really only had a choice of going to the UK. And being from Belfast, it's kind of like, I'm not really a UK bird. So it's sort of like, all right, let's jump in the deep end and see how it goes. And I was lucky enough to get, a start in Ireland. And then because I'd already been in the States and lived away for quite a while, it wasn't as daunting as it would have been had I've never been in the States before, trained in the States. But like the approach to acting is very different. So like it seemed more like a challenge. And I just find the fact that, the landscape is stunning, the attitude is very different over here. So it was just more of the right vibe for me. I wasn't sure now how LA was going to be in comparison to New York. And I mean like night and day. Right. So like LA is kind of like a city that will bring you it'll bring you to your knees in many respects. You'll learn like what you're made of over here. And New York is a lot more overtly aggressive. Like one thing I love about New York is like they'll tell you to get stuffed to your face, and in LA it's like, yeah, we'll call you.
No, I was just going to ask that question because you said you're coming from the Belfast, from the we just say the island of Ireland, and the Irish effing attitude. So LA is X attitude and New York is Y attitude or this type of thing. So if you're going to put an expletive in the two, what would you do on the LA? One is you're brought to your knees crying or wherever else. And the other one, it's like we'll promote you, but you know damn well they're not.
Like, I think New York has a lot more of an Irish presence, especially like from the immigration standpoint. So it would be easier in many respects to find your Irish community here in New York. But in LA, it's only in the last couple of years. Like one of my best friends that I actually met on the Tudors, she ended up in LA as well. So, you know, I had a small pocket of people that I knew. LA is very different with the way that they socialize. As opposed to New York. Like New York's a bit more tight knit, and it's probably because like everybody's living in Manhattan and you're basically on top of each other. Whereas LA, it's very spread out. So like people are a lot more flaky here. They'll kind of like cancel last minute, and you kind of like sort of need to. Like I don't take any of that stuff personally anymore. Yeah. Like, I will say to someone like if they're canceling like the 5th time, it's like, all right, messer, like what's your actual schedule at this point? Because like still not taking it personally, but like. If you want to meet up, cool. If you don't, also cool.
Well, like, we had somebody cancel literally 1 minute before the show before we started recording, and we were kind of going, "Oh, right, we were meant to start recording. Who can we get?" And we got Santa Claus, and Santa Claus came on the show.
Michael Sullivan, brilliant guest. But again, it was like you literally could. That's the great thing about social media. You could literally do an IGAM, and you ask someone, and they go, "I have a friend twice removed, my cousin's uncle." And within 15 minutes, you've got a face in front of you. And okay, we just need to do something because we're already here, we're set up. And it was a great show. And it had an unknown something came out of it in terms of a story that you couldn't write the stuff. But I mean, absolutely. It was actually a better show than the one we would have had we had the guests. So we like serendipity. We like the universe has been very good to us in terms of throwing in, left fielders.
Yeah, especially the throwing in. We sat here interviewing one of our guests and literally went, and we said, "Are you okay?" He was going to go, Are you okay? Should we stop the show? Blah! For 5 minutes.
We had The Exorcist for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
It was like spinning head. But I'm going to ask, I think what is, when you were talking about New York, see, I know nothing about America. I don't, very left it, but I've never gone further than the bottom of the road. But I mean, I'm afraid of, I don't have a green card. So I got
a green screen, but no green card.
What I watched as a child is, from ER to the street, might be the streets of San Francisco. So everything was, you're either you're in bits in a hospital being put back together, or you're effectively being stabbed, raped and robbed and killed. And I'm going, that's my perception from old Irish TV of the States, and it put me off for life. Now I'm sure it's nice. That's
why he lost his Mohican, you see. The Mohican actually emigrated to America and is doing really, really well.
I'm a shy, introvert, retiring type, and I'm afraid to go over there because I don't know how to make friends and influence people. So it's a very daunting place, the States, to me.
I don't see it that way. Like, here... you probably you should never get your impression of a country from Irish television back in the day.
No.
It's like, no. And like the difference between like TV and movies and reality over here is just like a learning experience in itself. Like there are some of the best people I've ever met are over here. Just like salt of the earth, really well traveled, or others just not traveled at all, stayed in like the town in their state, but just have like a great view on the world. I think you can find amazing people anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. I'm just back from.
It doesn't necessarily matter, but America's not scary. I mean,
it's very scary.
No, I'm just back from Canada because we went to spend time with my son and the grandchildren. So we were looking after grandchildren, and we met some amazing 2D characters called Bluey. Do you get Bluey where you are? Oh, it's on Disney Channel. It doesn't seem to be over here, but we got all the toys and we got all the paraphernalia. It's an Australian TV show made in connection with the BBC. And we just literally watched it 24 hours a day because it's the only thing that would keep the kids happy. And then they would come over and play with us. And
no, actually, there is an interest. Myia, I'm Ted Bundy. I'm married with children. And all I do is take money to do that, and that's who I am. You know, that's another program I used to watch. So if it's not Family Guy or not Ted Bundy, jeez, no, it's Al Bundy. I'm not Ted Bundy. I'm Al Bundy, married with children. That was a terrible drop of him.
No, dear.
All right, it's that type. Yeah, my favorite song. So there we are. I'm a talking head with one CD in the car, and the kids were from the cot upwards were listening to Psycho Killer, and I still don't know the words, but I mean. Because I have no retention. I can't remember 4.5. I'm the eternal gold.
He can't remember how this show started. That's how bad it is.
So I'm always like, we're loving this.
I have to do a wrap up at the end of it.
So we're going to have to make some sense of this. You're a lovely Irish girl that finds herself in the Big Apple and the LAs and the Hollywood and the lights. And you're able to carve out a career for yourself over there because there was feck all happening at the time over here. But there is stuff happening now. Actually, there's stuff happening now. Would you consider coming back? Are you totally nationalized now?
It was an insane decision to make, but it was actually one of the best decisions I made just because I was back in Ireland and I was filming something at the end of 2017. And I happened to see a notice for IADT it was their first year of their master's program for creative production and film finance. And I decided to sign up for that 2 weeks before. And then I found out, you're actually supposed to be there in person. It's like, oh, crap, I live in LA. All right. So I commuted from LA to Ireland, yeah. Because
you must have a truckload of Green Shield stamps or something, or air miles. But
I have great air miles at this point. But my gut just told me to do it, and I also wanted to make sure that I never lost touch with the creative scene in Ireland, and I really had done that for quite a period of time. And if you want to do a lot of the finance landscape now is co-production and international co-production. Yeah. So it really just made sense. And the people in my class were absolutely lovely. I've never been so jet lagged in my life. I found out at the time.
That's right. That wasn't Ryanair, was it? No, I mean, you probably did do a bit of Aer Lingus or something.
Aer Lingus, maybe.
Direct flights at the time, actually. So that was fantastic. Brilliant. They haven't been for a while now, but I was actually quite ill at the time and I didn't know it. So I got a diagnosis halfway through the year, and then I ended up needing a couple of operations after, which is a bit of a shock to my system. So I was really grateful that I made the decision to try and, achieve something like that. Probably would have gone a bit more smoothly if I wasn't commuting internationally, but I don't.
You could have done it in your sleep. So far, you said you were sick, tired, grumpy, hormonal, and you did it. And you did it in your spare time. He says it doesn't say much for the course. You just fitted it in.
You must have been taking the course. I think that's what it is. I think you were.
It's a great course
director.
We had Annie Duna on. No, the IADT is a great course. Great masters. We're hoping to aspire to have one ourselves, and we have one in the making.
Well, let's go back to Annie Duna there, because Annie Duna, I actually mentioned that because I taught video production, and quite often I found that the girls ended up being the producers, and I kept saying to the lads, look, treat the girls well because they're going to be your bosses, and if you don't look after them. And Annie said, no, you've got to make sure the girls go and do cinematography and all these things. And I said, well, we tried, but they all became producers and they earned the money and the boys relied on them to get them their gigs and things like that, because that's the way it was. How did that work for you? Did you have a similar sort of experience, or am I just talking nonsense?
No, that's my George. I'm the nonsense. You're the sense.
Yeah, I know, but we like to find out.
No, that wasn't my experience at all. In fact, whenever I was here for quite a long period of time, I was an actor. and actually like booked for acting stuff tomorrow and the day after. But the experience I found over here was like, whenever you're an actor, like for example, there are over 500,000 actors in Hollywood alone. So from a statistical standpoint, you know, it's a bit of a shock to the system.
Right. No, we'll phrase that one. How many employed actors are there in Hollywood versus
employed
actor in Hollywood? Like,
all right, so there's 10 million unemployed ones, 500,000 employed ones, is it?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember going to London and doing a rain dance course, and they were saying that basically there's about 2,000 directors, but only 1% of them were real directors. The rest of them were actually working in coffee shops and things because they couldn't.
I was going to say that. Is there exactly the same? Is there exactly the same number of baristas as there is employed actors?
Well,
no, I'm terrible.
The average number of films that are produced by producers in general is, I think, 1.4 films. So like it doesn't matter what area of film that you're in. Either way, it is a really difficult industry. Like I'm trained from, well, basically in every department. And I wanted to do that on the technical side of things over here. I have a really good, like, experience now of how isolating certain departments are, specifically for women. Like I was doing my education for Red Cinema cameras, and I was the only female in the class.
And you told everybody, and they knew it, and you pointed it out, and you had a special T-shirt with an arrow. No, I'm only messing about it.
Pointed out or not, like, you know, some people are just trying to be nice, and it's like, you're going to get something. I was like, oh, I'll lift that for you. And it's kind of like the Irish, and it's like, I'll lift it myself.
No, if we swing the question around for a second, because there's a weighting issue, because an awful lot of we got into the industry in Ireland and there was like the big growth, or not the big topics of conversation is diversity, inclusion, and gender imbalance, and addressing it. But if they're not going in to the industry, you can't readdress 90-10 men if there's no women coming in. No, well, I mean,
it wasn't a very welcoming environment.
Right, there you go.
In the first place, like, do you actually want to go into something getting sexually harassed or assaulted?
Oh, yeah.
And the level of assault, I mean, I think it's a pretty big, like, topic in Ireland at the moment.
Yeah.
But I was at a script reading with a director, and I was assaulted, where he bit my face because I wouldn't kiss him. So it is like quite a big issue in the industry.
I didn't know I could get away with that. I mean, I'll have to give that a go some other time.
You can't.
No.
Just popping pills and doing drugs, and, you know, not necessarily professional. Coercion is like the name of the game a lot of times in Hollywood. So I mean, I can understand why a lot of women wouldn't want to. I think it's great that there are a lot of female producers. In fact, some of the best encouragement I've gotten is from female producers, and two male producers in particular. But, you know, unless you can see the representation, you're not really, like, it really does matter. And
I wonder if it's
and with the having to meet the quotas with the European Film Council and the Irish Film Council, whether they lock it, and you can tell, like, there's a lot of men that are actually quite annoyed about it in America as well. But it is necessary, and there are so many reasons, and it'll trickle through right to the kind of content that's created. And like, maybe your nieces are seeing kinds of programs that are incredibly encouraging that they never would have had the opportunity to see. Just
actually, you're going to like this. Like, myself and George were talking probably about a year and a half ago, going, you know, for us to make inroads ourselves personally in the industry, we're thinking, feck this, we're going to tick every box. So we're going to be an all-women crew, all women production, all women storytellers. Actually, the two of us. I mean, we're just identifying as women in the story, and I think we'll have a stronger team, a better chance, more opportunity, because
you have to have balance. Because
no, feck those men. They're fucking useless.
No, well, actually, because you do have to have balance.
A lot of the time, women haven't had the opportunity to be as experienced as males. So you do want to have a certain level of experience on set, but also it's like, you can't swing to the other extreme. I think with American politics that benefits no one. So, like, really, like the project
I wonder
at the moment, like,
I wonder if
male DP, like no issues with stuff like that. Like both points of views and diversity, really do matter. It's you should all be working together. It shouldn't be one or the other.
Well, I know that when I started my career, as I went through the post-production side of things, so I spent most of my career in editing. But when I was at the BBC, there was a good proportion, and this is 30 years ago at that particular point in time, there was a good 50% female editors and assistants at that particular point in time, because back then, when we were doing things, the editors actually had assistants, or you were an assistant to an editor and actually learnt your craft and your trade. And I think that's the downside with in certain areas of film and television, where they don't seem to have the assistants to actually be trained up and get new ideas. So I think that is a big issue. But I wonder has it really over the last 30 years got tougher and not better for women in the industry? Is that something you think?
No, because I can only speak from my experience. Either way, whether you're male or female, the industry is tough. I would think that it has been toughest for Black women in the film industry, more so than any demographic, or maybe Native American. I was talking to a Native American filmmaker recently. Like a lot of it has to do with, and it has been the issue since the dawn of Hollywood time, is the studio system. And it's great to see that, the kind of content that's being demanded by people is a bit more diverse in general. Like people like Tyler Perry, was a total trailblazer and made a specific kind of content. I mean, like that man has a license to print money at this point. So, I love seeing things like that, but there are an awful lot of issues with regards to unionization. The format of how finance actually works in film isn't necessarily conducive to an industry that's thriving for everyone. It's more necessarily thriving for the 1%.
No, that's it.
Right.
There are corporate entities that have shareholders, so they're beholden to actually, whether you like it or not, they're required to make a profit for their shareholders.
I love what you're saying, because what's happened is it's touched on us. We're focusing on education in film, let's say. And we're also trying to focus on, getting, indie production in Ireland and England, let's say, for example.
They're doing a great job.
Well, great. That's 4 customers we have now. So,
4, absolutely.
No one knows what we do. They're going, you're not selling anything. There's nothing for sale. We can't buy anything. We don't know what you do. We don't know where you are. You seem to be all over the place, but doing nothing and talking great talk. But that's all.
We're doing nothing.
We're doing lots. We're doing lots.
100 and some odd.
We've got great effing attitude. We're going to have to buy your name off you. So we have the right.
Marked already. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But what it is what we're nosing from the research and the European research that came in the last number of years.
23% for any female directors.
And even Screen Ireland is going, they want more female producer, director, writer, all the above. But if they're new, then what it is they're cutting their teeth in shorts and indie features before they get the chance to be doing it for the big boys in macro production.
Well, that's anybody's.
But the problem they're having is indie finance has been decimated. There is no indie production in Ireland and England. Therefore, there's nowhere to have the opportunity unless we can find out how to finance these opportunities.
Yeah, we've actually been talking to a few producers that were
independent film financing in Ireland. Like Iraq, that was independent film financing. Like Edwina Forkin.
What we're saying there's a certain level. It's like saying see what you have is it's getting finance because it has an out, it has sales and distribution, it has a couple of aliases, it's 5 million up. But if you go 1.5 million down to no budget, some budget, a little bit of micro budget, they're trying not to get a job. They're more trying to be in indie producers or directors or writers. The problem is there's no one in that market here. Like there's a couple of films that we know and are talking to people and they're trying to raise money about the 1.5 million mark. But there's no one, the investors going, what are you giving me? And they're giving them nothing. They're giving me 110% of risk and no out. And there's no sales and distribution and there's no guarantee of ever seeing your money back. Therefore, I can give you 1.5 million of jobs we can spend the money on and give us the opportunity, but we can't, someone else has to pay for it.
Sorry, 1 sec. Let me just let the dog out before he...
let the dog... Who let the dog out? That's what we want to know.
Who let the dog out?
That's like... there are always, exceptions to that case, like Gary Shore, who directed I think produced part of the $100 million Dracula movie in Northern Ireland, and he got his start with, I think it was Cupful of Tears, funded by the Irish Film Board, and you've got Rory Robinson, and you've got a number of people that they all did start in the.
Although there is exceptions, but what you have is we've a shortage of 12. See, they're doubling the amount of content out there because of the streamers, and is actually creating a massive demand for all the job types. But there isn't an output from the colleges doubling, and there isn't anywhere to go get your experience doubling. They want you already to have your experience, and the big boys will hire you in the morning. But there's
part of me is like, do you know what? If that's the case, then get up off your arse and make your own movie.
There you go. That's George,
it.
Get off your arse now when you make that movie. That's exactly. No, that's where we've.
That's what we've been doing.
No, there's a cohort there which are doing. It's the no budget ones are doing that. There's the Stephen Ford. It's great. They're going. I'll do my best with nothing. God forbid I had a budget. Now, because I'm an accountant in my previous life, I'm going. There's the other people that have moved off of that are going. The meaningful start budget is about $500,000 to $1 million to $1.5 million, and that's not something they can eke together between themselves. The production demands 40 people from cast to crew for 40 days and nights, and that type of thing. There's no escaping £500,000. That's nothing in Hollywood terms. I spend that on a couple of costumes, but here,
Hollywood is a different ball game. It's very unionized. You're dealing with SAG-AFTRA. You've got a certain kind of minimum payment. And Equity Ireland, I love the idea of equity, but Equity Ireland really did sell out the actors on every single negotiating point that they possibly could have. I mean, I was represented better by British Equity than I was by Irish Equity, much to my own annoyance. And grateful.
Actually, this is interesting. If you were to fix the Irish indie film industry,
I would not presume I could.
No, but what would you like us to do on your behalf?
Yeah.
You see, and that is my.
That's right. Don't worry. Yep. You take that and we'll cut that out.
Absolutely. I'll put them to voicemail. They can leave a message because I know what it's about. Sorry.
You're in demand. We can tell our audience, she has a job.
Absolutely.
People are chasing her. We have to get in a queue to talk to you.
But here's the thing is the Irish film industry has not had the opportunity to catch up with itself.
Yes.
Yet. The amount of production that is happening, we did not have the studio space. There were 6 studios that were greenlit in County Wicklow alone not so long ago. They're at the cutting edge of some of the virtual production that's coming down the line. The amount of crew talent, acting talent that hasn't had a look in until recently, an awful lot of that has to do with producers like James Flynn and Morgan O'Sullivan, who are so brilliant at representing the Irish talent and crews and creating a standard of content that is internationally recognizable. I think basically every Ridley Scott that's ever movie that's ever come out of Ireland has been produced by those producers. And they've got amazing female producers coming up through the ranks in their company. The amount of content that they're developing at the moment, the same with Element Pictures. They're developing amazing stuff. And it's taken, the Irish film industry is such a relatively young industry. When you look at Hollywood, it's since 1918, essentially. Before that even, and Germany has a good film industry. They've got some of the best financing in Europe. French has got a great, the French film industry is also great. So I wouldn't be too hard on the Irish film industry. They're really getting amazing contracts. And the Irish government have enough foresight to understand that on a global competitive basis, if you give really good tax incentives, you are attracting all of those jobs. I do think something that's going to be really necessary is explaining to not only the Irish taxpayer, but the Irish crews what everyone else in the world is actually getting paid for those jobs. And it's a really fine balance between working out, you know, a certain level of incentives for Hollywood to abandon the unionized workforce here that costs an absolute fortune to film in and attract people to Ireland, but also being aware that you're not able to exploit the Irish people either and the taxpayers' money. So they've done a brilliant job, especially I think I was reading the other day, like 137 million was...
I wrote a little, that's brilliant. I wrote on that thing. I saw the 137 million. Yeah. I think I saw the IM and I said, that's the 32%. That equates to 500 million production spend of eligible spend in Ireland. Now, they said we could double that in the morning. And the problem with Annie Duna was saying, you touched on it in your answer there. If we doubled the studio space, that would be $1 billion immediately based on you can't get the people in. There's nowhere to put them. You know, so the talent, it's a map the talent to the space and the attraction, pay the right day rate. And because I'm an accountant, I'm saying you could effectively move all the English production to Ireland in the morning on the basis of talent, crew, and space and tax break. The accountant doesn't care as long as the quality is the same. He's looking for, I get an extra 10% tax break. I don't need to make that back on the sales and distribution. I'm moving everybody there in the morning. You know, so we can change the cues in the morning. Well, the morning might be a 5-year time span to build out a studio, but we need to fast track macro green film studio build.
They do have, they have greenlit an awful lot, and I believe the construction is actually starting.
It's very small though. Yeah. England is kicked into overdrive.
Northern Ireland, on the island of Ireland, has also had a massive amount of studio space that's been greenlit, and a lot of the Irish crews from the Republic end up going up to Northern Ireland and actually being able to work there as well and get some great experience.
That's why we've got this office here in Newry.
On the Game of Thrones.
That's it. So we're trans Irish. George is in Northern Ireland. I'm in Southern Ireland. We're already on the island of Ireland. Now we're global with you. We have our new partnership in the LA side or the side of things.
Stephen Davenport and a number they really do have a good strategy, and they're only getting going. The pandemic put a spanner in everybody's works, essentially, but they only opened up a branch of the Irish Film Board here again this year. I believe the year that I moved to LA, Jonathan Loughran was responsible for the Irish Film Board here, but there was no financing to be able to do. That's
the whole point. It has to be the full holistic end to end.
Also, the office does need the funding in the United States. I know that they're going to be doing some co-representation, I think, between the Irish consulate that also opened in Los Angeles recently. But it's very different whenever you need to bring a Hollywood studio head out and entertain them, and you've been given an Irish budget for down the pub, So
that'll be 2 potatoes, a pack of potato,
absolutely,
and there's a couple of leprechauns and a bit of Irish dancing at the end of the night. There, no, thank you.
But the amount of cross-pollination that's starting to happen, the Netflix shows, and it's also it's these studios are starting to open up their own Irish base as well. And the government is, very intelligent from their standpoint of, well, you're going to be required to hire so many Irish people, and that's just, if you want to do business here, that's how it's going to happen.
So there's the interesting thing.
Really are.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned earlier on that you've done Red, you've learned how to use Red, you've gone through other areas of the industry.
Loads of different areas. Yeah.
No, and one of the things that I noticed when I was coming through my career, I kept saying to certain production managers, why don't you understand my job as an editor? Because how do you know that I'm not overinflated?
You weren't allowed to move around different departments because of the way that especially when you were shooting on film and not shooting digital.
Yeah.
Early age, the early days of digital, a lot of the guys who were kind of the heads of departments for film just pretended that they knew what they were doing with digital. I hadn't a clue. But the great thing now, between, people even being able to shoot stuff on their iPhone, and the industry is so much more accessible than it ever has been before.
So what do you think? So if you've got a new producer,
history of films.
Yeah, if you've got a new producer coming out at this point, I mean, what should their focus be on? Creating a good story or understanding how they sell their product? What's the biggest influence do you think that should be on a project?
One thing I find really interesting is like whenever I was back, somebody actively discouraged me from trying to learn all of the different areas. And that was like, it really stuck out to me because they said to me, you don't have to know everything. And my answer was, well, I'm learning all of these different things so I can make better decisions. And I'm not saying that will automatically make someone successful, but I don't think you should discourage someone from going with their gut to learn as much as they possibly can. I found that, because indie production is so competitive, especially whenever it comes to the sales and distribution side of things, like a lot of the time, like in order for you to be successful, you do need to understand how the financing works, how you can do your own budgeting, scheduling, how you do like qualified in editing, how you can edit something, if like I had an actor that did not turn up on set. They cancelled on the day that they were required, and then were sending me messages expecting me to schedule an entire like studio shoot with, I think there were like 30 people on set that day, and it was a big fight day as well. So there were weapons and like So I think like if you can learn as many things as possible, but while you're doing that, really go with your gut and follow what you're really interested with. You'll find a place for yourself in the industry. It doesn't mean that it's going to be any easier, but it does mean that you might be able to avoid certain risks and certain pitfalls that you would inevitably fall into if you'd never like played around in that area. Or learned enough about that area, like, with ATSC 3.0 coming in, and, like, if you're going to be mastering something now, it's like there's new developments in color correction software by a guy called Dado Valentic, who's amazing. He's a color scientist, and they've developed a software called Color Lab, and it has all of the AI integrated. So now you don't need to spend like 2 to 3 days balancing all of the primaries on your post-production color workflow. Like you literally just press a button. It'll automatically match shots between different cameras. So you're not screwed between camera.
No, there's the interesting thing, Myia, because what's happening is they don't want you to know that, because if you knew,
you just need to ask the right people.
You're going. That's exactly as the accountant. You're going break that down. Why is that 500 quid? Well, it's going to take 10 hours or 50 quid. Now, what are you doing for 10 hours? It's 3 lines and 2 pictures. And then you break it down and understand the flow from back to back. And then you understand budget process. And the weird thing is you just talked a load of accountancy.
The issue though has been, and I did come across it whenever I was back, and there is a certain amount of job protectionism. And
that's what I was trying to get to.
It's completely understandable.
Yeah.
But the change in the industry is inevitable. And either learn to open your mind and work with a larger, take your blinkers off, essentially, and realize that it's a holistic process. And, the story is, at the end of the day, going to be the center of the project. But if you have a good story and your sales and, everything is lacking, it does not mean you're going to get distribution. It gives you a better chance of getting distribution. It doesn't mean that you're going to make a profit. And if you're not returning on your investment, you're not going to get financed again.
Now, I'm going to go back a sentence there. The problem is the poor mug that financed the first time that didn't get anything, and he's hammered. So the problem that people are having now that we're encountering is they can put their money in a pension and get 50% without doing anything. They can put it in a wind farm and know it exists.
Not here.
Well, not so much there. But that million quid, that million, so that million is someone else's 2 million after tax, or some combination thereof. It's as you said,
but how much of that is going on screen?
Yeah. Say again?
How much of that 2 million is going on screen?
I'm saying the full million is going to production.
It's great for some things, but whenever it comes to, if you want to do night shoots, it's the most expensive country in the world to actually do night shoot, based on the ridiculous agreements that are in place. Or I believe they're with the weather and the tone of the country in general, it would be so great to sort certain things out, but there is job protectionism, and it has been really necessary because there hasn't been enough work. But we do have a generation of filmmakers that are coming up through the ranks that just don't give a damn about anything.
No, you can't be. These are all the blocks of yesterday.
Right to be able to make something. It doesn't mean someone's necessarily going to finance it, but I do not believe in any we can'ts. You know, you find a way. I'm not interested in all of the problems. Like, you can't solve a...
No, actually, I love what you're saying. I'm going to be I'm shutting up now.
Yeah,
I'm actually enjoying this, because it's like saying we want the stories out there. We want to create content. We want to get people to stop being protected about their jobs and give more, because they should be putting themselves into the creativity, and it's going to be seen in the evidence.
I think the best way to be creative is to understand the limitations that are being imposed on you, and that doesn't stop you from doing things, right? I mean, I'm learning at the moment how to use Unreal Engine, because I can see an opportunity to finish a film I've been working on
Saturday, virtual production. Yeah,
and I'm sitting there kind of going, and I use Blender and I use all kinds of stuff, and I'm kind of going, right, I can now do stuff that I couldn't do 10 years ago, so I can finish this movie that I've been working on for just a passion project. But I think the only thing is you just have to keep going and say, okay, what can I learn today? Oh, that's something. And those are the things that I think are so important, because once you understand what the process is, then you can monitor, you can work out how much it's going to cost or how little it's going to cost, and you can package something a bit more efficiently and get it out there and get it done. And I think that's what I think is interesting. I mean, I know that from working on projects in the past, when people limit you with the resources, you try and find a way to do it so it's more creative. And I'm looking at the youngsters to see how I can get ideas. That was the great thing about teaching, because you went into a classroom, you went, oh, that's a new idea. Oh, hang on. So I was cherry picking ideas from them.
Completely different approach to things. And an awful lot of the time, like, whenever it comes to education in the film industry, they're trying to cram you into a particular area where it's like, this is how it's always been done. But that doesn't mean that's how it has to be done.
No, and speaking our language now, that's
absolutely.
So out of the classroom into production, that's where we are going. There's no more. The university that we're creating is experiential, on set. Get your qualification doing, not fucking talking about it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword as well. Like, you can think that you know everything, and you go into something and you burn every bridge possible, and like, you can never cross those.
No, the great thing in Myia is I know nothing. Yeah. And therefore, we can only learn. That's the thing. So
I think that's the beauty of it, because I know that I mean, I've been in the industry 30 odd years, 37 years, but there's always something new to learn. I'm playing around with new cameras, messing around with new lenses. I don't claim to know anything, but I do
claim to know nothing. Yeah.
He claims no nothing. but that's what's exciting, because I know this is how you can have a career for life in the film industry, because there's so much to experiment with, and there's so much change that's going on, and you can always learn something new. And then if you do get a budget, you can bring people on. But if you understand all the different component parts, you then know how to work with those people that you're having to employ to do certain things, and how to give them ideas to speed the process up.
Sorry, I'm going to ask you a question, Myia, because I think I saw an article there the other day, and George might remember we were talking about it. So we touched on the fact, it's good to go wide and understand everyone's roles, but after that, you got to pick your SME, your subject matter expertise. So if you were picking one thing,
one of the most in-demand areas of film at the moment are writer-directors. So like, people would be like studying directing, or like, I mean, is that really something you can study per se? Like, you need to be making films to be a director. But like, actors that are now creating their own shows. Like, look at the Phoebe Walker-Wallace, I think it is, from Fleabag. Claire Dunn from Ireland, who just won the European Shooting Star Award.
Garvin Burke, with all his projects he's been shooting.
So
one of these years,
good content, but they also need, the taste maker of that project. You can't defer certain decisions to everybody. And also, like, just because a project has money doesn't mean that it's any good. Like,
absolutely.
For that,
Well, we keep talking about the Blair Witch. The Blair Witch, when they made it with nothing, turned into something really good. And as soon as they were given a budget, they couldn't work with it. They didn't know how to make the movie. It all flopped.
And then everyone else keeps on promising Blair Witch, and
but that happens quite often. Like, there are some of the best cinema moments are happy accidents, because they didn't actually have a budget, and they had to come up with, like, even some of the best solutions. People are CGing everything now. Part of that is insurance reasons, but also like practical effects. Like, they were making their own effects. They were doing blood explosions, and they're brilliant. Like, now a lot of the time they get they get the financing on the second project because the first project made so much money. And so many people just look at this industry as a job. There's a difference between the artists in the industry and the actual gigging people.
What are you?
I'm still making up my mind.
No, are you the artist?
I think that's going to be a lifelong. I'm an artist in other areas. I know from hopping around departments and things, certain things like I just don't want to do. Like I've done DIT on projects and stuff, and I just get frustrated sitting there transferring files. I like.
Yes, Garvin.
I can do it. You don't meant to do it. That's it.
I like it, but it needs to be done. You know.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
No, but you don't need to do it. That's back to budget. If the budget was there, they can do it. Yeah.
Well, there's an awful lot of automation there that does it while you're not looking as well. If you're on a budget, you know, you can be the director and still, you know, have Shot Put Pro and you know checklists and some checks, and they're being delivered to your phone while that's all offloading onto, you know.
Yeah.
So is there a passion project arty-farty creative in there that has it? Because we asked this question of a bunch of other women we spoke to.
I'm still getting Garvin to try and come up with his arty-farty project.
What's the one in the handbag? If you not sexist otherwise, I have my man bag. I'm just saying it's in there. It's a passion project. If someone just, we don't know how much it is, someone that was 10 million, 15 million, and the reason they couldn't do it was an unattainable, budget, therefore couldn't be done. Have you got something you could do that you need to do before you die?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, that's every project I work on, because I'm not going to work on it if I'm not passionate about it.
Yeah.
So, like, they're just...
Good answer.
I'm at the point in my career where I'm like, oh, okay, you're throwing money at me. I don't care. I'll take it. Like, obviously,
I can spend that, no problem. Yeah.
But like, there's a writer that I'm working with at the moment. He had stuff. We did a short a while ago. We were catching up last week, and one of his scripts was on the blacklist, and he was invited by he's a great young writer. And he wants to turn one of the projects that we did a short on into a feature film. And like, one of the actors is from Denmark, one of the actors is from here. There's a project that I'm shooting in March that's by a young British writer. She's in it as well as an actor. She was in The Theory of Everything, and I've got an American actor.
My question would be, is that $1 million, is it 5 million, 10, 50? What is it?
I'd love to do a TV series. Well, right. I'd love to do a feature film on the Táin, but told from Queen Maeve's perspective. Because much of our Irish legends are actually translated by men, historically have been written by men. But Ireland was a matriarchal society. It certainly wasn't a male-driven society. So there's so many things that have been lost in translation. Like Queen Maeve it was all about her ego. But when you look at how society worked back then, that's actually not what it's about at all.
So we're trying to get some Celtic superheroes, is it?
No, not super. They're not superheroes.
Well, they could be DC. Just
like Game of Thrones ripped so many things out of the Irish legends. I was talking to an executive at Legendary Films recently, and they have people that are specifically studying cultures and their national legends, and they're stealing cultures, national legends to put into Hollywood movies. It's like, I'd love to see some Irish legends. And it's big budget stuff, but we can see from the Game of Thrones that we actually have the crews and the talent. And Stephen St. Ledger, who's an amazing Irish director who does fantastic action. He was doing stuff on the Vikings. I think he's just finished directing a couple of movies. Like, there is a way to do that, but I do think, like, in many respects, some Irish film has been caught up in a certain genre of telling an Irish story, and there's a much wider scope.
Right.
That.
So that we want Celtic mysticism to go kick ass.
Considering what the marketplace is, and the fact that, if we have a film board that's representing Ireland, like, Ireland is far more than, don't get me wrong, like, the films that have come out of Ireland based on the famine and based on other things, are absolutely phenomenal films. Like, Iraq is phenomenal, but I'd love to see some serious, like, Irish legends and all of the, could you imagine, like, Michael Fassbender and all of these people playing, like...
Finn McCool, kicking the bejesus out of, like, a couple of...
Having Saoirse Ronan as Queen Maeve.
That's exactly.
I'd love to see...
Well, Killer Sacker Stone
project of mine. And that's why in part of my master's, we had to go and do work experience. So I had worked on the Tudors before, and I had contacted them and just saying like, look, guys, I haven't spoken to you in forever, but do you remember me? And I have to do some work experience. Can I come and work with you guys? And they were so lovely, like genuinely amazing people, amazing crews. And I found myself on the set of the Vikings season, I think it was season 6, episode 12. And it was like 3 camera shoot. And I was chatting away with Peter Robinson, and I was telling him about Robertson, and I was telling him about some of the tech and stuff over here, and he hadn't heard of it yet. And it's just like being in that environment just really kind of lit a fire under my ass for some of the stuff that would be a passion project for mine. But you can't just sit around and say, I'd love to do,
No, we're saying, stop there. We're going to add on from the beginning of the conversation. That's the passion project. Inject Irish fucking, excuse the French, attitude to it. Package it in the investment, access, Hollywood, all areas. You have the relationships with the Irish Film Board and all the connections back here. So what you're meant to do is now talk to your man Davenport, that's now in the LA office, and you want to go a courting 50 to 100 million to bring it to Ireland to do the Saoirse Ronan on steroids, Queen Maeve, wherever the hell it is, kick-ass Celticism.
That's not my pitch, but yeah, sort of.
That's it.
Really, there are so many amazing things about the Irish culture. But if you think about it from the target market could be, we've got a diaspora of over 80 million people.
Yeah.
Oh, more. That's just a one-second name.
Really over 100. But there's it's not necessary.
If you add the illegitimates in as well, you're about 200 million.
Our Irish culture it's not just for Irish people. Yeah. It's kind of like a great story is a great story. But there have been, shorter films that have been addressing stuff. Like I think somebody made a film about the Fomorians. And I remember watching that. I think that was Film Board funded back in the day. And that was really well done. But you could have you can still draw from certain elements of our culture that happened before the separation of church and state, before
Michael O'Flatley, you have to go
of Ireland or ethnic cleansing, and really those stories are they have so many similarities with other cultures across the world. They really are wide sweeping, inspire, great kernels of truth at the heart of them. That I think it's never been interesting. Whenever I spoke to somebody about wanting to do about my passion project, they actively discourage me. It's everybody wants.
Who are you speaking to all this time? The one that doesn't want to tell you what the job is, then the next person you talk to discourages you. You're talking to the wrong people. Stop talking to them.
What is it? Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean if somebody discourages me, I don't if somebody says don't do that, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be all right, okay, cool.
No, hold on a second. Now you just said they said don't do it. You're meant to be doing it. So we're back to we've got the passion project out in there. We know what it is. This is the game you got to go play on the sideline once a week.
And all the locations around where I live.
I
live on Sleeve Gully and the Cooley Mountains are behind us. Killissack Stone. Yeah, we can do it all here.
We can package your tax break, your co-production, roll in the Annies. It's all here. It's all ready for you. You just have to court the LA money.
My wife, she's just retired, and she always wanted to make a film about Neve. Yeah.
Could you imagine, Jeremy Irons, Fionnuala Flanagan, Saoirse Ronan, Colin Farrell, Michael Fassbender. We've got so many, Olwen Fure. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I saw her in Macbeth years and years ago. She was phenomenal. We have Aidan Gillen. We've just got so many areas.
We just need to pitch it. We just need to write this down and pitch it.
Pitch it.
That's what you need to do.
But that's That's not me in the next 5 years. That would be me. Like, that's a good 15 years.
Hold on a second now. I was going to be too late.
We're getting old there.
You were talking about digital and all sorts of camera study, and I was going, I don't know how old you are, because it was sounding as if you were in George's time and looking great for your age. Now you're saying in 15 years' time I might cut my teeth on something else.
Something like that for people to take you. Like, it took 10 years for them to make The Favourite, and that was, you know, Element Films, and that was like the amount of times that financing.
No, but they were coming from prehistoric Ireland, you know, Betamax, God knows what. We're going to go straight for the juggler, talk to crypto, techno, NFT money, and just do the creativity. It's, if you could do it tomorrow, would you do it? What are we waiting 10 years for? The money, that's it.
If I got the money tomorrow,
yes,
I would go and speak to the producers of the Vikings that have the experience.
They're still in the pub in Wicklow, for God's sake. They haven't left.
They will be for the next 10 years.
I've never produced anything at that level, and that really is like, you know, if you get money like that, you do have to respect what you're being given.
No, we just get the subject matter experts in. The whole point here is who has the money makes the decisions.
One of the things I started to realize, one of the things I started to realize when we were talking to some of my colleagues that worked in Hollywood as well and working on bigger projects, you suddenly kind of going, they're just the same as me with a smaller project, but they've just been given a bigger, they're doing exactly the same stuff. It's just, it costs more money. So what I'm beginning to realize is that you have to just go and say, do you know what? It doesn't matter whether it's 10p or 100 billion or whatever. If you're working on the project in the way you want to go, you're still going to turn it out. You know what it's going to be and how it's going to work out. And I think that's the important part, is just keep going for it and going for it.
Absolutely. But it's also, it's like, it's not just money. It's finding the right group of people that are willing to be on the same.
But you're not in your mind. You don't have the money. Therefore, you're not looking for the people.
No, I'm always looking for the people, but I'm just willing to, you know, realize that it's like, I would love to work with these people, but it's not going to be now. It's going to be in the future. And I'm certainly not going to ask them for anything right now, because I'm at a point where I am like, I'm only starting virtual production with Nomon in Hollywood actually this week. And, you know, there are so many things that I've never considered from that standpoint. We're not even necessarily going to need locations for things. Forget about green screens. They're on their way out. You've got real-time visual effects and stuff, which makes all of my passion project stuff far more realistic and easier to achieve. Like, you might not need 50 million to be able to, well, you probably would if you have all those stars, like, you're going to have to pay them. But
actually, that's the thing, is it's the characters, it's the actors, isn't it?
You don't need them if you go deep fake.
Like, you being the only creative is not going to, like, I think the idea of an auteur is old Hollywood. I don't, like, you've got someone like Quentin Tarantino and they've come up with their own genres because they're such auteurs. But whenever you're doing something like that, that would be a classical thing. You're going to need, especially if it's an Irish project, about our Irish heritage, you would want to have as many Irish voices speaking to that.
No, I'm terrible, Myia, because I'm thinking of a fictional Irish heritage where we go back to, we don't know who was there back 10,000 years ago in Newgrange, and it's this civilization that's been gone. So therefore, I've said this in a bunch of shows. A bunch of shows, you go back 10,000 years, we're meant to be in our underpants, you know, digging potatoes, but we built, things that are like
they were probably sitting there drinking Guinness and kind of going, do you know what, one day this is going to be a really good money maker.
The philosophical question of what is someone's culture and what is someone's heritage. It's more than like, it lives in the DNA of the Irish people. I mean, I think there was a study recently where we're still having the genetic effects of what actually happened in the famine. Like, there are certain things that, like, PTSD carries through generations. You know, there are an awful lot of things that, you know, will.
Are we coming up with excuses why we're a bunch of alcoholics and bullshitters? You know, I mean, it's in the DNA. You can't escape it.
No, do you know what, actually? Those are stereotypes of the Irish people. I've met so many Irish people that are teetotalers, Irish people that are incredibly talented in so many different areas. Like,
they were probably adopted. They weren't Irish at all. I don't know. They were blow-ins.
But here's the thing. I think one thing that is really important for Irish creatives is, like, you've got to trust your gut and have your own creative voice and know when to say no to people and know when not to listen to people. But I also think it's really important to get out of Ireland.
Yeah.
And
my problem, Myia, was
a wider sense of what the industry is, and like some of the ideas that were coming from, some of the courses and things that I'd done in Ireland, like even right back to the acting. Whenever I was like, I did the Gaiety School of Acting, professional acting course when I was doing my finals in philosophy and UCD, which I guess I just like baptisms of fire in general. And I ended up going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York after that. And like, whenever I went there and everything was completely deconstructed, and it was a very, very much method acting, very much, an American approach to things. It's not necessarily better, but knowing the difference between the two not only can make you direct other actors and emote things more readily, like you just have a different perspective on things. And I did find, like, between some of the conversations I've had with Irish creators, like they'll be absolutely, committed to a particular idea. And it's not necessarily because it's, and this is just my opinion, it's not necessarily because it's the right idea. It's just because they haven't been outside of, that creative box, dealing with, oh my gosh, like the difference between producing indie in Ireland and producing indie in Hollywood. Like dealing with the Santa Barbara Film Commission and the Inland Empire, and I'm dealing with like San Luis Obispo. It's all totally different. Whereas in Ireland, it's kind of like there's a lot of really goodwill towards artists, and there are so many people willing to give their time and support in Ireland. And a lot of the time that does not exist in Hollywood, because here it's about money, it's about business. And like, I'm very lucky from an indie production standpoint that I did go to some of the best acting institutions, because I have amazing relationships with actors that are like leads in TV shows at the moment. And like, it's like, we came up through the ranks and we were both like crying in the corridor, prepping to go on stage in the classroom. And it's like, we have that bond where if I hadn't gone and done all of that, I wouldn't even have a look in with these people from a production standpoint, because they're judging something on script. But whenever you know what's going to happen in the post-production process, like you were saying earlier, like you can't explain that to someone if they can't visualize it in their head. And then there's an awful lot of trust that happens, where it's like, it's very different whenever you're the actor. Like I did a project where I was the lead in the project, and it's so obvious to me now where it's sorry, no, I can't, absolutely not. It's different when it's your face and it's your butt up there. And the effects aren't working, or the acting isn't necessarily great that day, or nobody really knows what you're dealing with off camera. It doesn't matter. All that matters is what's in the can, and then where's your post-production budget to fix that stuff.
Oh, I know.
So it's kind of like, half a dozen of one and what's the saying, something of the other. Like, either way, there are opportunities in any part of the world. And it's just like approaching it where you're seeing all of those opportunities and being just knowing enough or telling enough people what your passion project is or what your dreams are. And you never know who you're talking to sometimes. Like,
well, you certainly haven't a clue who we are.
Well, so actually,
I was in and I was reading a book, and somebody came up and started talking to me, and he was a nice guy, and his name's Barry Navidi, and he's Al Pacino's business partner. And I ended up at a screening the next day for the Oscar Wilde project for,
and that's back to serendipity. Exactly. But you have to be out there. You're out there and you're meeting opportunity and you're acting on it. Yeah.
Well, look, we are now
across people as you're learning all of these different things. So people saying you have to specialize in one thing, then you're only going to meet a particular group of people. Like, I've met camera operators, I've met people in like camera rental houses that I never would have met, engineers like Nelson Tyler, who creates all of the big massive gyros that go on the front of helicopters and stuff, and his wife was Kubrick's Steadicam operator. I mean, like, the people that you come across as you're pursuing whatever your dream is, that's what's important. Like, I always like the tagline for my company is dreams are made of you. So like, just because you have a dream, and somebody tells you it's not realistic or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve that. There's a reason you have that dream. And it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily achieve that dream, but the pursuit of it is
the game.
Going to give you all of the stuff that will,
But folks, we're actually, believe it or not, been going for an hour and 15 minutes. And Myia's had 2 phone calls from her agent, and she's probably itching to get there. No, that's fine, because we
Domino's Pizza, I know it.
We have proof now. There's a couple there. Listen, I mean, it's been lovely talking to you, and we've gained such a rich source of information from talking to you, which is why we love doing what we're doing. We're just talking to people in the industry, bringing back as much information we can so we can share with other people. And it's also hopefully going to help shape the path that we're taking in the way that we're going to be doing our academy. So that's actually fabulous as well. Just to give you a couple more minutes, is there any last words you'd like to say to our particular audience, which are filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers in the indie area in Ireland specifically at the moment, and how they might sort of pursue their careers at this point?
Yeah. If you want to be a filmmaker, the best education you can ever have is just making a film. It doesn't matter necessarily what you're making it with. You have to be like, sometimes a lot of filmmakers that haven't made stuff, there's an ego that's attached to it. Put the ego to the side and just make a film. Don't have expectations of how it's going to be, how it's going to turn out, but just pay attention to what you love or hate during that process. And people always have this idea of Hollywood and America and all of the, there is an amazing film industry in Ireland. There are amazing world-class talents in Ireland. There are so many things where it's I should probably just go back to Ireland, because I see so many opportunities, so many brilliant actors, so many brilliant writers that haven't even had a look in yet. Just get involved, even in your local community. Find out what filmmakers are in your area. You'll automatically start attracting your tribe, and just start making things with them. It doesn't matter if you're making it on your phone, if you're using Bluetooth microphones and things and lavs and stuff. It is the digital world. You've got social media. There are so many opportunities. This is the best time in the history of film that you could ever endeavor to make a film. It is the best opportunity any filmmaker's ever had in the history of time is now. So there's no reason to sit around and say, I can't get the funding, I can't whatever. Shut up, get off of your ass. And
yes, George, shut up now, for God's sake.
That's you, Garvin.
The pursuit of it, that you'll come up, that's how careers are built. You learn through getting things wrong. You don't learn through getting it right.
Absolutely fabulous. Garvin, no, you haven't got any more last words. Any last words, Garvin?
I was going to say, I'm reminded of something you said earlier about following your gut. Now, my problem to date is I have had IBS on a regular basis, and that's brought me here. So I have to make sure no IBS, then follow your gut, pursue the dream, and find that tribe. And I like what you're saying. We're looking to get that film tribe and go on a Celtic hunt, and out there we go.
Of you. There's a reason it's your dream. It's completely unique to you. There's a reason you have that. You have to believe that. If you don't believe that, you're not believing in yourself. And the thing that will make or break you in this career, no matter how successful you are or how little work you get, you have to believe in yourself. And if that's the biggest investment you could ever make.
That's it. No nightmares.
Great way.
Dream on.
That's a great way to end the show. So thanks everybody for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next week. And bye for now. And thanks very much, Myia.
Bye guys. Thanks. Have a great one.
Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.